There was an argument that happened afterwards outside the bowling alley, which led to the shooting. I can tell you that Takeoff was not involved in playing in the dice game. He was not involved in the argument that happened outside. He was not armed. He was an innocent bystander.
Arrests have been made in the shooting of rapper Takeoff, and a lawyer for one man says he's innocent. Renowned homicide detective Phil Waters comes on to break it all down. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Over now to a story that we've been following. 2 arrests have been made in connection with the shooting death of rapper Takeoff, and one of the men claims he's innocent. Patrick Xavier Clark has been charged with the murder of the Migos member, and he's currently sitting in jail on a $2 million bond. But then there's also Cameron Joshua, who's been charged with unlawful possession of a weapon. Now, this all stems from a November 1st incident down in Houston, Texas, in which Takeoff was shot and killed outside of a party at a bowling alley. And police say this may have all resulted from an altercation over a high stakes dice game that was taking place. Now, I should mention that law enforcement has said that Takeoff was an innocent bystander. He wasn't involved in any of this. Now, there was a hearing between attorneys, and Clark made a brief appearance, and they were agreed that there's going to be a bond reduction hearing on December 14th, and hopefully we'll cover it here on Sidebar. But here's something to note, and that is that Clark's attorney, Leticia Cajones, said that her client is nervous, that he's concerned, and that, quote, he's being charged with something that he believes he's innocent of. So how would anyone do in that type of circumstance? Well, it's time to bring in retired Houston homicide detective Phil Waters, who is considered one of the world's leading expert interrogators. Phil was one of the original members of the Houston Police Department's gang murder squad, and in nearly 5 years maintained over a 96% case clearance rate. And he has worked over 140 gang-related homicide cases, and now he is a frequent contributor here on Sidebar. Phil, good to see you once again.
Thank you for being on here again, Jesse. Appreciate it.
So I'll get to the statements of his attorney, but let's just talk about the arrest, because you and I covered this a few weeks ago when it first broke, and so now there are these arrests. What's your reaction to the arrests and the work that law enforcement did behind the scenes?
Well, my initial response to that is that there was someone that came forward and provided some information. When we last talked, I talked about the difficulty of working this type of a homicide investigation when you have this particular demographic, for lack of a better word, because people do not want to speak out, they do not want to come forward, and that's kind of the nature of the beast in these types of investigations. However, it would indicate to me that someone did the right thing and came forward.
Well, this little tidbit was released too. So prosecutors say that they see or they have video of Clark pointing the gun and firing the gun in the direction of people, and also that apparently there was this wine bottle that was left at the scene, and they were able to pull his fingerprints off of that. What do you make about that?
Well, those are all good pieces of evidence because it puts the suspect at the scene. And so it's going to be very hard for him. I do not know if he was interviewed or not. I don't know if he provided any further information about his involvement. But when you have video evidence, it's pretty clear. Now, remember, in all videos, it doesn't tell the complete picture. You're getting a one perspective of a part of an entire event. So if the video shows, and apparently it does, that Clark was standing there holding a gun or firing a gun, that's only what we are being shown. It doesn't say what the circumstances were around his causing him to raise the weapon and fire the weapon. So
Well, I guess the question is, what took them so long for the arrest? I say so long. It was about 4 weeks. I don't know if that's typical in these kinds of investigations. You said that you think someone came forward, someone spoke. You think that was the extra piece of evidence that they needed to tie it to these 2 men?
I think so. I don't, knowing how those investigations are worked by my own experience working those things, it's never a rush to grab the first usual suspect, if I can use that terminology. So it has to be some building blocks of evidence that's going to give them the probable cause to go and arrest Clark, get that arrest warrant for him. So I am sure that there were pieces of evidence that were put together that determined that he was the most likely suspect in this case. The video being part of it, the fingerprint, which again puts him at the scene on the wine bottle, and then, of course, somebody coming forward or some bodies coming forward and giving them some witness testimony.
I am sure it didn't help that when he was arrested, he had a lot of cash on him and an expedited passport. And investigators believe that he was planning to go to Mexico. They think he was fleeing to go to Mexico. Now, his attorney, Leticia Cajones, said that he had this pre planned trip to Mexico and he had canceled it before his arrest. What do you think?
Well, of course she did. And by the way, I know Felicia. I have been against her in court. She is a very capable attorney, and so I kind of smile a little bit when I see her statements about this particular case. And in homicide, we would call that information a clue. It's very presumptive that he just happened to be planning a vacation to Mexico. He was just happening to be taking a large amount of cash with him and just happened to get an expedited passport. So those things put together, 1 + 1 still equals 2. If I'm the homicide detective working this case, that is certainly more probable cause.
Yeah, that doesn't look great. Not going to lie. If that went in front of a jury, I don't think that's a great piece of evidence. But you mentioned Ms. Cajones. So this is what she said, quote, there is a lot of investigation that needs to be done. So we just ask that everyone keep an open mind and let the system do its part and let the Constitution do its part. And that is right now, he's innocent until proven guilty. She's right. You say you know her. You say you kind of smiled at her comments. What do you make of the fact that she believes her client's innocent?
Well, that's not what she said. What she said is he believes he's innocent. So I would say, from my perspective as a homicide detective, that that's an interesting way to phrase that statement, that he believes he is innocent, which would, to me, would be an indication that he, in kind of a roundabout way, is putting himself there at the scene. He knows what he did at the scene. The video verifies what he did at the scene, but he doesn't believe that he is the one that caused the death of
Of Takeoff. Yeah.
of Takeoff. So yeah.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you about what else investigators might need here because Sergeant Michael Burrow from the Houston Homicide Division, he said, quote, I mean, we've brought it down to over 30 people that were standing outside. We have an exact number. We're not going to put that out. When the shooting happened, literally every single one of those people left the scene without giving a statement to police. We found a few of them that night. We found others since then, but it's important that those people come forward, and we are still looking to talk to a lot of those people, and we will looking to find you. It'll be easier if you come to find us. It'll be easier if you come find us than if they go to find them. What does that mean? What they need? What does that mean about the other people that are there, and what other information might they need?
Well, I know Mike, as a matter of fact. He and I were on the same squad together. We've worked murders together. Mike's a very capable homicide detective. And that statement is completely accurate. When you have that kind of a crowd, it is very important to discern who those individuals were and get as many of them in to make statements because each one of those witnesses sees a different component of that incident. And so he is exactly right, and encouraging those folks to come forward. That there should be no fear here, to make sure that there's some a measure of justice carried out, and making sure that there is a complete. I agree with Felicia's statement. Usually, when there's an arrest made, well, in most cases, when there is an arrest made, that's where the investigation truly starts because you've got to the point where you have enough probable cause to get that arrest warrant, and now you have to start putting together the investigation and getting all those affirmative links that make that investigation a more solid result. So he's exactly right, and Felicia is too as well.
Phil, thank you so much for taking the time. Phil Waters, great to get your perspective on this. And as I said, there's a bond reduction hearing, I think, scheduled for December 14th. As this case progresses, would love to have you back on, Phil, to talk a little bit more about it.
Great. Sounds good.
And that's all we have for you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on Sidebar. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
Sherman DeSalle continuing our coverage tonight.
Yeah, this new video obtained by TMZ does not show who fired the fatal shot, but it does show Takeoff in a crowd of people where there could have been multiple guns. It also shows how quickly violence can escalate.
Who fired the shots that killed global rap star Takeoff is still a mystery tonight, but new video shows someone police are interested in talking to. TMZ released footage that shows an unidentified man standing near rappers Quavo and Takeoff with a gun in his pocket. This was while Quavo got into an argument with someone over a dice game. A scuffle starts. Then you can see that same man with that gun drawn, and you hear gunshots.
Still can't tell who fired the first shot. But we know after that first shot, there were roughly 10 more shots.
Police say they are aware of this video and this unidentified man is a person of interest. There's also speculation that multiple guns were fired. TMZ executive producer Charles Lauderdale says that they anticipated more people to send information that could help police figure out what happened early Tuesday at 810 Billiards and Bowling. A private party had already ended that night with at least 40 people in attendance. Migos' record label, Quality Control Music, and its CEO, Pierre Thomas, released statements in regards to the shooting. Part of it reads, quote, "Senseless violence and a stray bullet has taken another life from this world, and we are devastated. Please respect his family and friends as we all continue to process this monumental loss." Fans also share their grief for a recording artist that left a lasting impression.
Traumatic things, tragic things happen to them. Their fans feel it also. And I've certainly seen plenty of that emotion being poured out on social media.
Now, we're still waiting to hear from Houston police to see if they have any more evidence on this case, including possible surveillance video. This is a business off of San Jacinto that's surrounded by cameras. If you have any information that can help police solve this crime, contact Crime Stoppers or HPD. Reporting from Houston, Sherman DeSalle, Fox 26 News.
Meanwhile, in Houston, a jeweler is coming forward with new surveillance video from the night Takeoff died. He tells 11 Alive Takeoff, Quavo, and their entourage stopped by his store just hours before that shooting. As our Cody Alcorn reports, the man known as the King of Bling was one of the last people to see the Grammy-nominated artist alive.
This is surveillance video of Takeoff and Quavo along with their entourage walking into Houston's Johnny Dang & Company custom jewelry.
We open late for you because that's a convenient that I always take care of them.
Johnny Dang says his spot is always a stop for the group.
Whenever they go to Houston, you just stop by, hanging out, and buy some new stuff.
He says Takeoff and Quavo stopped by to get some jewelry cleaned and to check out a couple new pieces.
He just sat right there on Monday night. Takeoff is the one, he's very, very quiet, so nice. I've been around with them so many times.
Hours later, Takeoff was gunned down after leaving a private party in downtown Houston outside a bowling alley. A shock to the entire hip-hop industry and fans around the world, including Dang, who is known in the industry as King of Bling.
Losing, lost one of the member like Takeoff is a very big loss.
Houston police say about 40 people were outside that private party when something went down and shots were fired. Police confirmed at least 2 weapons were fired. As of this hour, no one has been arrested in connection to the homicide. For more details and to keep up with the very latest on this investigation, you can follow all of our coverage right now at 11alive.com.
Morning. Sophia, according to the warrant, Takeoff and Quavo, members of the group Migos, were in town to visit a music producer named Jay Prince. They played basketball at a local gym and then had a private party at the bowling alley on October 31st. According to the warrant, they played a dice game and someone lost a large sum of money. We're going to take you back to the scene on what happened early that morning. It was about 2 o'clock on November 1st. 34 people were gathered outside the bowling alley. This, of course, was after closing time. Quavo argued with several men about the dice game. This is according to police. The fight got physical, and police say video shows two people firing shots. One of them, a man by the name of Willie Bland. This is the first time we're hearing his name. According to the warrant, Bland travels with Takeoff and Quavo. Police say Bland's shots were not fired in the direction of Takeoff. They say those bullets that struck Takeoff came from a gun held by Patrick Clark. This is Clark in court earlier this week. Police say Clark was also holding a wine bottle at the time, which he left at the scene with his fingerprints. Takeoff was hit twice with bullets from the same gun. When police arrested Clark, they say he did have a gun on him at the time of the arrest, that of a similar caliber. Detectives say they used multiple videos and phone data to tie Clark to the location of the shooting. He's being held on a $2 million bond. Be sure to stick with KPRC2 for the latest. Sophia?
All right, Zach, thank you for that update. Happening today.